James Alexander. I'm a U.S. Army veteran. I served 8 years on active duty, all infantry. In those time, I was fortunate enough to work with some incredible people, from everything from special operations to normal conventional folks, to working at a brigade shop where I would create and craft orders.
My name is David Herrick. Been Navy veteran, served 20 years, and mostly on carriers, USS Nimitz, USS John C. Stennis. I've recently started my graduate program here at University of Washington, the Evans School of Public Policy and Governance.
My name is Jordan Houghton. I'm the Assistant Director for Student Veteran Life at the University of Washington. I served in the Army 2009 to 2013 as a 68 Whiskey combat medic. Deployed to Afghanistan in 2011 to 2012, and yeah.
Whenever I think of Memorial Day, I think of one person, Sergeant Luis Torres. He was the first person that I knew in the military that died. He was killed in action in August 23rd, 2012, and he was a member of my platoon. I spoke at his memorial service, and that was probably one of the greatest honors of my life, is being able to talk to his parents about his sacrifice and explaining to them in detail what a fantastic young man they had raised and how he had imparted wisdom on my life. I was never going to go back to college. I was never going to do any of the things that I'm doing now, but because of that experience and seeing his life taken from him, it really changed my entire perspective.
For me, Memorial Days, it's a reflection on the people who I served with who aren't here with us anymore. Whether, in the line of service or something else, there's a lot of things that take, military service members and veterans' lives. And so just reflecting on all of them and kind of celebrating that I got, a chance to have them in my lives and what they did for our country.
It's got a lot of different connotations. It's definitely not a barbecue. It's not the point of the day, but it's typically been a day where I get to remember the folks that didn't get to come back, or when they did come back, they felt they weren't able to stick around with us any longer. And I think that's a really important part, because albeit it's a voluntary service and all that, I think it's that much more meaningful. People go forward into this, and there's a known chance of not coming back home. And to keep those memories going is, I think, what Memorial Day really is about. I mean, memorial, and sharing their stories, finding ways to connect with our community and just everyone in general, honestly, to let them know who that person was, because even though they may not have come back, it doesn't mean that a piece of them doesn't live on. So I think that's a real big component, for me at least, of what Memorial Day is.
For me, Memorial Day is a quiet time of remembrance for those soldiers that have fallen in combat. It also could be applied to veterans that have recently passed or have passed in their normal daily lives. But for me, Memorial Day is all about thinking of those that died in combat.
Well, about Memorial Day, and even me coming here talking this, it's not about the veterans, it's about the people who aren't here anymore. And it's about honoring their memory. Going to a veteran cemetery, going through, tidying up, remembering their names and saying them one more time. That's really what I think of. And just reflecting on all my personal experiences of the people who I had, unfortunately can't talk to anymore.
On Memorial Day, I typically have a few folks in mind. One that comes particularly is a fellow named Sterling Wyatt. He was one of my infantry guys, one of the first dudes I met when I came into my unit in Joint Base Lewis McChord. And he was a goofy dude, Forrest Gump type. He'd build out and disassemble a 240 so quick that you would have thought that he was in a race or something. But he was just a really charismatic and compassionate guy. And his death overseas during our deployment was extremely untimely. It's something that shouldn't have happened, but he's one of the people, as well as Michael Ristow, who had just had a baby right before we deployed. And again, it's one of those things that shouldn't have happened, but it did. and I think about his wife and his daughter a lot when Memorial Day comes around, especially because the dates actually coincide pretty closely to when he was killed. And I also think of Nicholas Takut, who was one of our forward observers. Again, another charismatic guy, really young, was just gonna get married, and something happens during a mission, and it just doesn't go that way. Um, and I also think about Will Stacy, who I didn't have the pleasure of meeting, but I've learned to embody a lot of what his life was working with his family, his mom and dad, the Stacys, who are still within Washington, and his sister Anna, and just all these people who essentially were around him. And I get to hear a little bit about him every day. And I think that's kind of that component I was talking about, is that a piece of them comes back home, and it's up to the people who have that piece to figure out how do I tell people about this? How do I let them know who they were, or what they did, what they stood for? And I think that's what Memorial Day really kind of brings into thought with those four particular people, and thinking about how I can keep somewhat of that memory alive, and some of their best characteristics of who these humans were.
So the number one misconception about veterans that I see on the UW campus is that we're not all white. There's a lot of white veterans, there's a lot of representation, and you think of the word veteran, you think of a white guy. And here I am, very much not a white guy, talking to you about my experiences, especially as an infantryman. It's very rare, right? I was an infantry squad leader, so as such, I was the only black leader in many of my companies. I was the face of that movement for many of my soldiers. I had soldiers that had never worked with a person of color before, let alone taken orders from them. So what I want people at the University of Washington to understand is that our sacrifice, we all sacrifice for a number of reasons, but some of us, when we come home, we don't have the same level playing field that others do. And that's really the problem.
I'm here to learn. As a veteran, I don't see it as my identity anymore. That's what I have done, and here I'm looking at what I can do next. So I'm for veterans who are coming here, we're here to learn. We're here to open our minds and get new experiences. And for other students, just to be able to talk to us about it openly and honestly is all I'm really looking for.
I guess what I would want fellow students at UW, and even our staff, our faculty, or just our community about veterans, is that we come in all different pieces. There's not a single person that embodies what a veteran is. As much as people want to, point to, look at Captain America or something, it's really not what it's about. When you go into that, they break you down so that when you come back together, you don't really have this me type of mentality. It's more of a us. How do we get this problem solved? How do we work together? And I think we see that a lot in these types of events, like with Memorial Day, where we try to find ways to include our counterparts with, ROTC or Gold Star Mothers and our veterans organizations, and just some of the other student orgs that are around who have a passion for kind of honoring the fallen service members. So I think the big thing to know is that we're friendlier than what media portrays. Not everyone is this person who's sitting in the back of the classroom, and if you talk to them, they're going to flip out. Like, does it happen? Sure, but that happens to your normal student too. It doesn't really matter. We're normal people. We just have a different experience, and we come to the table with that. And if you ever have a question about Memorial Day, or what it is, or what Veterans Day is, or what Armed Forces Day is, and the importance of those distinctions, ask a veteran, honestly. Just like the question here, what does Memorial Day mean to you? Because I think that's the best way to illuminate it in that moment. Well, if you find yourself having some free time, there's plenty of veterans memorial cemeteries around our state. Evergreen with Shelley, right up in North Seattle, is a place where, if you're curious of what some of the sacrifice looks like over the ages, or you want to hear a story about somebody whose loved ones carry that peace with them, go on Memorial Day in the morning, go plant some flags, stay for the ceremony, and just be open. There's nothing wrong with asking questions, but you know the good adage, an assumption makes an ass out of both you and I. So be curious, be involved.